Folks, I want to bring up Kathy Corbett and Lisa DiPasquale for our next segment. Folks, we're a very upbeat, positive show, and we like to focus on the good things, but we also have to deal with the realities of life. And a little over a week ago, we had a terrible tragedy in the community where a young man, only 17 years old, a senior at Long Beach High School, took his own life. And it's been devastating for people in the community. Kathy, it hit your family really hard. Your children were friends with the young man. And talk about, from a parent's perspective, this whole situation which hit the Long Beach community.
Well, I don't know if you know, but I'm a counselor. I have my master's degree in counseling, and I've worked with people for many years with depression. And when I tried to explain, and especially with kids, they don't understand. Why didn't he just call someone? Why didn't he tell his parents that he wanted to kill himself? And I tried to explain, and this is the explanation that I usually give, is people have cancer, right? Some of them die, some of them don't. You can have a terminal condition of depression, and that's what this boy had. This was his third attempt. He was 17 years old. How bad does your illness have to be to bring you to those points? And the kids, the kids were devastated, which they should be. It's devastating. And then they look around and they say, hey, there are times when I've thought of checking out. And I have a good relationship with my kids and their friends. And we've had times when the kids have been that down. And then, I had the job of taking them in my van to the wake. Most of them had never been to a wake. I called in advance to ask, was it open, was it closed, so I could prepare them for it. It's not something you can really explain, except that the way I did, it's an illness. It took this boy's life. He could have lived till he was 30 or 40, or not. It's just one of those things that happen, but I encourage my kids to talk about it. We had open dialogue about it. We talked about the wake itself, the mother's reaction at the wake, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, was totally heartbreaking. That's why she chose to have it open. She wanted her friends to visit her son. It was just, the way they described it, but they talked about it, and that's what it is. It has to be discussed. It can't be like this stigma. Like mental illness is some sort of thing to be ashamed of. One of us can have it. It's a chemical in your brain. God forbid, it could happen to anybody. And that's what I tried to, instill in my kids. And it's sad and ironic that this happened at the same time we scheduled to be together anyway. But that's what I have to say about that. I'll turn it over to you. I don't know.
Lisa, you deal with, you help people in what you do, but from a perspective of a parent, what's the message to families out there who heard about this terrible tragedy for a parent to make sure that this doesn't happen, and just in general to raise awareness and to help any person who is suffering?
My son Dane, who does a surf report, and I talked about this, and I asked him, what would clue someone in? Because most of our teenagers are in their room on their computer. I would say a majority of them. Social media is, I think, a place where children, adults, and teens outpour emotion. And I think reading Facebook, Instagram, and reading between the lines, reading the content, reading the message, the feeling. Is your kid depressed? Is your kid sounding odd? Chemical imbalance. Also, plan activities, I think, in the living room. Like we bought a dartboard for Christmas. I want him out of the room. I want him interacting so I can see better how he's acting. How is your children acting? How are the teens acting? How are they interacting with other teens? So I think that's our responsibility as parents, and to educate yourselves. What are the signs of depression? Are they isolating? Are they showering? Are they doing their homework? Is there a change? So I think it's our responsibility to do these small things, but I think also by going social media, that seems the way of our future. I think you got to be really in touch. Don't just say, oh yeah, he's fine on Facebook. Look at his Facebook page. Read it.
I really want to thank Kathy and Lisa for sharing. I think you both raised so many crucial, important points. And like I said, you know, I think it was so important that we touched on this subject to raise awareness. And folks out there, if any of you see any signs, the Long Island Crisis Center is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It happened to me. I got a phone call several years ago from a young man that called me up and told me he was ready to commit suicide. I had him immediately call 911. He called me up several hours later in the day, telling me he's ready to commit suicide. This young man, he called me up again later that night and told me he was ready to commit suicide again. And I got him in. I told him to immediately check into the Long Beach Medical Center. This young man is doing fine today. He's got a good job. He's happy in his life. But, you know, the thing is, there's always help. And again, if you see any signs, call up the Long Island Crisis Center. And some of the points that Kathy and Lisa made were outstanding. So there's always help, and life is always better than the alternative. So I want to really thank Kathy and Lisa for sharing. We made some great points.